let human design to be something up to like astrology and things like that.
Your internal world is going to be formed by you and the world no matter what. It's really just a matter of whether you proactively do it.
My job is not to tell you what you are. My job is just to help you discover what that is.
Welcome back to the first episode of the New Rules podcast in 2026. We're back. We had, I think, over 30 days off.
We did, and I didn't know what to do with my life since we haven't had that.
I'm sweating.
Why?
I'm like nervous.
Why?
Probably because I'm rusty.
It'll be good.
Well, before we get into our big announcement topic for the day, what's something that's happened over the past 30 days that you think would be useful for the people to hear about?
Last 30 days, I think that I'm trying to think, man, the last 30 days, there's just a lot. I feel like just a lot has happened in the world in the last 30 days. But I would say, you guys more personally or
either.
just in life?
Yeah, either.
I think what we're seeing, out in the world, I think we're seeing a shift from soft power to hard power in our world. I think that it's, I think these last 30 days of January are actually some of the most significant 30 days in the last probably 10 years. And so I think there's going to be really an entire shift that we'll notice from these last 30 days of how global order works and geopolitics and stuff like that. So yeah, these last 30 days have been very I think cultural and globally shaping.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to be filming the podcast and be jumping into kind of this other big announcement while there's also simultaneously so much going on in the world that I know equally that
new Epstein file drops came out though. Epstein files are wild, and the fact that
you don't even get me started on this.
Stuff is redacted. That's what's crazy. The stuff that's redacted is
but
crazy.
The person who redacted them highlighted it black. They didn't redact it, so people are copying and pasting the material, and the material actually copies over.
Really?
Because it wasn't a legal redaction in the document.
Really?
They highlighted it black, and they're either this person really sucks at their job or they're the next mastermind of the century. Because some of the documents have it. I just saw a video of somebody copying and pasting them over with the information in it.
Oh, well, we got a lot. Yeah, there's just a lot with that whole deal. I think I think the stuff to where people have always thought, man, there's this global cabal, things like that, things behind the scenes. I think this stuff has been going on for a long time. I'm not saying there's some global cabal, but what I do believe is that there are all these types of things that go on, and these people like Jeffrey Epstein, who I do believe is pretty obvious was an actual spy of Israel, that a guy like him can, if you let something like that happen, it can destabilize the world just like that. So yeah, and I just think it's all, I said a few years ago, I think everything's just kind of being revealed, and then it's going to put our world in a whole different spot. So like I said, since 2020, it's a whole shift of the world, and we're moving into a new world order. We just don't know what it looks like fully yet. Yeah,
I texted you about this a little bit, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it. And I think regardless of where you fall politically, most people put a significant amount of trust into the government. Yeah. But I think what this is really showcasing, and I think what people are going to come to realize, is that our government structure does not have the systemic ability to administer justice at this level, because it will be far too disruptive to the people in power. When you have an individual an Epstein style character that is wealthy and socially apt and incredibly mobile, our United States government does not have the ability to administer justice at that level, in part because it's too destabilizing to the people that are in power running the system. And that when you truly wrap your head around what that means, if you're someone who significantly puts your trust in specifically the American government, it's incredibly haunting.
Yeah, because I think that it's pretty obvious that you watch this guy was funded to pretty much go out there. We're going to put a bunch of money in your pocket, go build these relationships, go create. And this is what I say, go create this literal, this kind of, it's really, I can't even, it's this web of just honestly, of dysfunction, evil, leverage these people, find out their stuff, and now and that's what it is. You have all this, really, you're able to actually take people, and you're able to actually manipulate people. You're actually able to, you have people, and they actually have leverage over you. And he had leverage over a lot of people, and that goes to other stuff. And so now you aren't going to get rid of anybody in that process. And so now, it's just, but here's the thing, it's been going on for a long time. It's just all this is being torn apart, and you're actually going to be able to see it. So like I said, I think that we are, like I said, living in a new world order. I don't know what that world order looks like, but I know it won't be the one that was before. And I think that's why you're seeing the response of America for us to be like this strong power. And, we're going into Venezuela, and we're just strong arming things right now. Greenland, maybe. It's because that's what you do. When you go to a place from soft power to hard power, you have to start reacting a certain way. We don't have the ability to just do what we want anymore, because there's other global powers now. And it's kind of like when you've been the bully on the block. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can't be that anymore because there's other people. And so you don't like that. So now you start creating the game we created. We're now creating a whole different game now. So
yeah, I think that it would be good for us to find a different outlet so that we can talk about these kinds of things more, just because it's so relevant to everything that we talk about at New Rules. I mean, I think people look to hear, how we're observing things and metabolizing everything that's going on in the world. As we, jump into this next season, this next era of the New Rules podcast, I think you're going to hear us talking about things like what's going on in the world, but I think more frequently you're going to hear us talking about how you as a person can just approach living in a world with this level of volatility. Because hearing stories like that, it's so hard to you wake up in the morning and you see this video of everything that was released with the Epstein files, and you can feel so helpless and so powerless. And what I think we're going to start focusing so much on in the New Rules podcast is hopeful stories that help you realize what you as an individual, you as a human being, really are capable of creating in a way that's good. And that is still incredibly powerful when you look out in the world and you can feel so consumed by what you can't control. Yeah,
because I think that in chaotic moments, what's happened is that things that are false, things that are frail, when shaking happens, right? And a lot of times shaking can be like, there's literally, think about if a building is built and it's an earthquake happens, but that building was not built according to the standards of what it would take to withstand a certain type of earthquake. It just completely crumbles, right? Same thing I think has happened is that we've built a lot of false, people have built lies that are incredibly performative, and they haven't meant to be performative. It's just the way that the way the system works. And I think because of now everything is shaking, what we realize, and what it'll even be more important in the future, is the fact of the integration of a human being. And so actually a human's design actually matters so much right now. Actually, people actually having an understanding of what their actual internal architecture really is. Values, what are their belief systems, whether their skill sets, their talents, they're genuine, not and there's been things that have been put there that have been because of pain, trauma, all stuff like that, but actually who have you been hardwired to do? And so that's really the mission, of what we've always wanted. It's is to help human beings to go into the world and to really be integrated. It's because we believe authenticity allows humanity to flourish. And so I think that's where you're going to be seeing a lot more of why we're focusing on this, because of, I think, the world that is to come.
Yeah. This season of the New Rules podcast is going to start today, next week, whenever we drop this. And it's going to run up until about summer. So it's going to be season 1, and it's going to be Magnum Opus. The Art of Becoming One of One. And this is inspired by a very exciting project. I have the manuscript of your second book sitting in front of me. And so we're going to take the next 4 months or so just to go through the different things that you wrote out within the book, because we believe it's just so timely for this period of time. We will be announcing the drop date here soon. But for today, I just want to focus on just the introduction of Magnum Opus, The Art of Becoming One of One. And to start that off, what happened for you to, sit down at your computer one day and say, I need to start writing a book about this?
It was probably, for the last year or two, after I wrote Mask Off, I was kind of like, man, I want to write something, and should I do it? But it just wasn't the time. I didn't feel like it was the right time. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then around October of this year, of 2025, I was there, and I felt like all of a sudden I had this sensing of man, I need to right. And I felt also that it needed to be done by the end of the year. And so that was crazy, because it was really 8 weeks, or really 8 to 10 weeks or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea how this is going to work. And so what I started to do was just literally sit there and start building out. I started just kind of writing. And this idea came to me because I was thinking about, man, what And I was just thinking about art one day. I have no idea. And I was like, and literally the word just kept coming to me, like Magnum Opus. I'd heard that before, but I honestly didn't even know like the fullness of like what Magnum Opus meant. And so I started doing research on it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is human beings. And so
what does Magnum Opus mean?
Magnum Opus, that actual word, Magnum Opus in the original language means great work. And so when you think about an artist, when you think about, and it doesn't matter, it could be, I mean, any type of artist that's out there, right? That's what they would say, somebody's Magnum Opus, right? So it's like Van Gogh is Starry Night. It's, Da Vinci, it's Mona Lisa. Even like, rap, like you go into musicians, right? Michael Jackson, Thriller is this Magnum Opus, right? Jay-Z could be, some people say it's, it's the Blueprint. Some people say it's the Black Album, even like Reasonable Doubt. And so anybody you think of, they have this Magnum Opus. It's like that perfect, their piece is what they're known for. And what I came to realize was that human beings are really like, they really are God's Magnum Opus. I think every human being is a unique creation. But I also know every human being, but that unique creation is not just to be a unique creation, but it's actually for the flourishing of humanity. And so that was the whole thing. How do you actually do that? So what I started doing was just started like unpacking, and it became very natural. So I would just get up every morning, and I would just write for like an hour or two. And there was just a lot of stuff that just came to me that was out of just who I actually was. And just things that like, it was more of like, really, it's like best way to explain it is like a meditation, like a devotional. It's kind of how this is.
Something that you wrote is that this is a book that believes your greatest work isn't what you build, it's who you become. Mm-hmm. When you were writing this, what specifically stuck out to you about the work that you've personally done, and not focusing on specifically what it is that you do externally, but who it is that you're becoming?
Yeah, I think that has been the reason why I think I've been very fortunate to actually impact and do, I think, some relatively decent things in this world, is because of like the greatest work has been actually figuring out what was going on in me. Because I think that what I do for a long time, though I was still doing stuff that was beneficial or whatever, a lot of it, I don't think it was at its best form, because it still was trying to fulfill something inside of me. It was still trying to fulfill a sense of significance, being seen, a wound from this thing, or just, the bad parts of just our nature of wanting society to know who you are. And so a lot of times you still do stuff, it performs well, it looks good, but deep inside it was out of some really dark stuff. And I realized, like, as I have gone on this journey of actually becoming, like we said, like integrated, it's actually allowed the work, the same work, here's what I tell you, the same work has still happened. The difference, though, it's the motives and intention of my work has really changed now. The motives and intention, genuinely, it's more than it's ever been before. It's about human flourishing. It's about what do I do best to serve humanity, not what's best serving me. Now, is that still in me? 100%. I don't think I'll fully perfect that this side of eternity, of like, there's not a selfish part of me, right? Mm-hmm. But I think I'm so much better. But that was all because of that type of work.
How do you feel like that applied when you were writing the book?
I think it applied when I was writing, because it was like I would go back and forth, because I would write something and I'd be like, oh, is this more me trying to say something that sounds very like,
punchy?
Punchy. It's tweetable. It's whatever. It's like, this is just the raw and cut of who I am. The other thing I did too was that there were things that, over the last like 5 to 7, 8 years, whatever, I've done so many different leadership talks, things like that. So it could have been very easy just to go take all of those and just like, all right, things that I like, literally my own material, take it, hey, and just go create stuff from that. But I also took a lot of stuff that was new, and it was new because it was things that were ancient within me that I've never discovered before. And I actually brought them out like in a new way. So I spent a lot of time just reflecting, like just thinking about like, oh, and that's what this really is. This book to me, it's just like, I always say it's like street wisdom. It's just street wisdom. It's the fact of like, it's what actually really happens when you not like this, I think a lot of stuff we give people, it's usually very like, at best, it may be a second level. Like I say, it's not like surface level, but it's right below that, versus what I try to do is give you the raw and cut of like, okay, this is really why and how, like underneath the whole thing. And also, it's not to give you a bunch of answers. That's the one thing. It's like, this book is for you to read as like kind of a leadership or a human design, like meditation. And as you read it, I want you to think about it. I hope I don't answer your questions, like all of them. And there's some things where I say, hey, try this, do this. But honestly, I didn't want to give a bunch of stuff for people to do, because I think that has been the problem. The problem has been we want things so fast, we don't sit with ourselves. We don't sit with information long enough to actually process it. And so that's what made great thinkers what they were. Great thinkers were people, they just would sit there and read something and they would just spend all day thinking about it. And that's why I think that we still go back, and we had so much stuff from the past that is so much more robust than what we have now, is because they had to think about it. There was depth to it. And so a lot of it, I just wanted it to actually be that. And I think that's where wisdom comes.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up that idea of human design. That reminded me of something that you wrote when you were writing the prologue. And you say, I didn't write this book because I had extra time. I wrote it because I kept watching people collapse under the weight of lives they never actually chose. I am a human designer. This isn't just a title. It is a lens through which I see the world. I'm a human designer is like a bold, a bold statement. So what do you think it means to be a human designer? And why do you think that you needed to be the person to write Magnum Opus, The Art of Becoming One of One?
Because of... I'm still in process of it. I think that I made that statement of being a human designer is because even the idea of human design today, that category, when you actually look it up, it talks a lot about astrology. It talks a lot about tarot cards, things like that. And to me, I think it's one of the biggest crocs in the world. Humans are the most valuable asset. They're the most valuable beings there are. And the fact that we've let human design to be something up to like astrology and things like that, I think is ridiculous. And I also think why human design, I believe every human has been designed. I think most people don't know how to actually do it. Now in that, some people will think it's arrogant. Some people think, what are you, God? I'm like, no. So to be really clear, it's like you think about a designer is not like creating new material. Like a designer doesn't come out, the actual elements, even if it's, here's a new fabric, like the elements were here. Everything was here. They didn't just create that out of thin air. So the same humans are here. And so a human designer is actually not designing people, or things the way that of what I may think they should be or what someone else thinks they should be. It's actually a human designer wants to know, okay, what's there? What's inside of there, and how do you help them, right? You think about the statue of David, and I believe it was Michelangelo who made the statue of David, and that's one of the things that he looked all over for the marble for the statue of David. And then one time he was like in some random shop, and there was just this piece of marble that was actually, it wasn't even the best piece. It was cracked, flaw like in the back, and he looked at it. He said, David is in there. And the point of the story is the fact that he could look and see what it was supposed to be. And I think what I believe is that people have the ability to actually help others to be who they've been actually designed to be. Mm-hmm. My job is not to tell you what you are. My job is just to help you discover what that is, and to be a real truth teller there. It's to hold a mirror up to you. And this is just what it is. And so that's why, I said it.
Yeah. I think the undertones of this book really are about self-agency. And I think one of the reasons why people can maybe hear I'm a human designer and be so offended by that is because even though people say they want to own their lives, they also would like to actually believe that there is somebody out there, something out there that's really controlling and architecting everything that they do. Because if you truly believe that you own your life, it means that you have to carry the responsibility of being the designer of the elements of your own internal world. And you're then responsible for what it's architected and built to be, and also what it produces within the world. And I think most people would comfortably prefer to live believing that there's something else out there that's more responsible for that.
Yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right. I think that people do. It's like we all say, I want to live my own life, do this. But it's like, no, at the end of the day, we want somebody we can blame if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, well, that's like astrology. I want somebody to predict my future for me so that I can continue to believe that I'm responding to the circumstances.
And same thing now with AI. I want chat to tell me whatever it is about my future. See, here's the truth, though. Whether if we realize it or not, people have been designing humans and doing this for such a long time. Systems design humans. What we're ultimately saying, what I believe, it's the fact of like people were doing that. Think about what we've come out of. We've come out of the industrial age. It was legitimately like, hey, how do we mass produce people to do these certain tasks and jobs in order to keep this system going? So what did we create? An education system that legitimately didn't go into the fact of how education used to be, what were people's skill sets, their abilities, their passions, whatever. Also, who they were, where they come from, where they grow up, where they apprentice under. It's like, no, you're gonna go here. Here's what you're gonna do. Here's the college you go to, and here's the type of jobs are great. So then you can go into corporate America, and here's this, and it literally is a factory line. So we were not creating, like, people were already designing humans. They were designing them to go down this road. And what I'm ultimately saying is that when the world gets so disrupted like it is, because it was stable, you can do that. It's not stable now. So what we've had was a bunch of people who were like managers and really like robots. And now we're trying to say, no. We want to help humans design that. I believe humans need to have agency to actually figure that out. I believe that there's a hardwiring design that a creator has put inside of you, and most people never find that. And I believe that that's one of the worst places in how to live in your life, is to be so distant from yourself. Most human beings live really a chasm between actually who they are and what they project to the world. And I think that's some of the reasons why we're experiencing the mental health crisis we're experiencing at times the breakdown in relationships, is because human beings have lived so distant from themselves. And I just believe so much in humanity that I just want to create literally this movement of helping humans actually find their real design.
Yeah, your internal world is going to be formed by you in the world no matter what. It's really just a matter of whether you proactively do it and you master the ability to architect your own internal world, or you passively allow it to happen. And what I think is so incredible about this book is I think there are people out there who are thinking, well, I want to intentionally do it, but how the heck do I do that? That's so, where do I even start, and what does that actually look like? And Magnum Opus, The Art of Becoming One of One, is really a blueprint for that. And I think that there is no better person to have written this book, because you truly are such an architect of the internal worlds of people. And I've seen you just time and time again not do it for your own benefit, which someone I think who has that ability, that I could see so many people find the temptation of wanting to do that for their own benefit, but you so often do it because you truly find so much just joy and love in watching a person discover who they are and becoming who they're authentically supposed to be, and discovering the purpose within their life. And so as you've started architecting like this process of discovering your art, your one of one, you architect it through 4 phases, which is the echo, the chisel, the fire, and the work. Can you share a little bit more about that?
And so really it's those 4 were kind of around this idea of like what I think is a part of like art. But when you really look at it, it's kind of like, you start off with like, really this echo, and it's just this idea of like discovery, right? It's like you got to discover it. There's an echo that just from things in your past, good, bad, your family of origin, things, your ancestors. Like there's things right now, it's gonna be like, grandma and granddad still live in your bones. You know what I'm saying? Like, pause, but like, I'm saying. No,
hey, yo. We're going to keep that in with no pause.
No. Right.
They do if you're in
I know. That's kind of TV time out. All right. But no, like it's like the echo is this idea of like, man, things just throughout human history, just like echo. Like it's the fact that we, I still feel the effects of like living in a country where people were enslaved who had my skin color, right? You live in the echo of that. I live in the echo of the decisions that, Coleman Crawford, my father, made. I live in the echo of what in my family line of those who were slaves, of what decisions they made. You live in that. And so a lot of times you have to go discover what that echo has been. You live in your decisions that you've made. And honestly, I believe there's an echo that the creator has actually spoke to who you're supposed to be. You got to go figure it out. So that's kind of like the discovery part of it. And then you go into the idea of the chisel. And then now it's the idea of really just development. And so now what you're trying to do is actually now you have to start developing habits. You have to start developing a process to actually figure this out, because it's not just a one-time thing. It's not like you sit there I just sit there, I meditate, or I start writing things down, write down my passions, write down my life story, and then I just figured out, no, this is like for the rest of your life, you'll be on an ongoing journey. So you have to have practices to actually be able to excavate those things. But you also have to have new disciplines to actually bring the real you out, because you already have disciplines. I tell you, everybody's disciplined. It's just most of a lot of the disciplines we have are just destructive things, right? Like everybody's disciplined. Like you don't believe you're disciplined. Like everybody should, and I think they do. Like you get up, brush your teeth every day, right? I think that's a discipline. You get up, I guess what I'm supposed to do. But it's one of those things to where I think they're just the new disciplines to add to who you are, to bring the the real you, to discover that. You can go on and on there. And then the one with the fire is really this idea of just like integration, just bring it to the world. Now it's like, how do I take the gifts, talents, ability, values, all that, and just bring that to the world. You know what I'm saying?
Why is that called the fire?
Because I think that, when you think about fire, it's actually, fire is a beautiful thing. Fire is a beautiful thing. It's a thing that can actually, man, it warms up homes. It creates the ability to see. Fire can be destructive too. So here's the thing. What I tell people, once you start figuring out this whole thing of your skills, your gifts, you have the choice that it's going to be a blessing or it's going to be something that can be a curse. And what I mean by that, if you think about a fire as well, if it's not contained, it goes everywhere. And so once you start figuring this stuff out, like you mentioned earlier, you're like, man, my desire to understand human design and help people. The fire of that could be because of the skill set that I have, it's so easy. I can manipulate people. Because why? I understand human design. I understand it for my own benefit. So that is where, now that would be a fire that's not really good at all. The last part of the work is really the debrief. And what that is, you got to constantly see what you're doing. Does the work work? Is it actually doing? What are you bringing? Is it real value? The values that you say you have, are they evident? Could your spouse tell you, yeah, I see that value of collaboration all the time in your life? Or can your kids say that? Is your work actually helping push humanity forward, flourish, or is it just about you? Man, you found out who you are, you've got these skills and things, but it's nothing really is better. You're better, but nothing around you is actually better. Nothing else is helping you move forward. And so I think that's one of the most important examples. And then it's just a cycle that you go back through, and then you're, oh, I do that. And then once you realize that, okay, now I got to discover, okay, well, if I'm not once you go to the work and you're like, man, I'm not really doing what I need to do here, then you start all the way back at the beginning and you just, why? And then you just kind of go through the whole process.
Mm-hmm. So it's a every day for the rest of your life kind of
100%.
work.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So I'm looking through the table of contents, and there's such interesting titles of these different chapters. So we have Get Lost First, We Don't Negotiate with Terrorists, A Barbie Girl in an Oppenheimer World, The Quiet Place. When you were writing, what is a chapter that really spoke to you, and that you're really excited for people to read?
Little Rooms. Yeah.
That one's my favorite one.
Yeah. Little Rooms.
In transparency, that's the only one that I've read. I'm reading through the manuscript right now, and I think I've read Little Rooms 5 times.
Yeah, Little Rooms for sure. And I think it's because it was in real time. It was the fact of my life was really influenced by Outkast, the group. I was there when the fact that when they first came out, I remember listening to Southern Playalistic. Matter of fact, I was listening to it this morning. I remember when that happened. It was just a sound. You're like, yo, who is this? Because it was kind of this mixture of it was hip hop, and it was this soul, but then it was also had this gospel feel to it. And it was just, and then their voices and how it was from Big Boy and Andre 3000. I was just there, and then Goody Mob came out, and CeeLo Green and all that. And so when Atlanta became a scene, I was there for that, but it all started in Little Rooms. It was that whole idea, it's the idea of the dungeon was where they recorded. It's this little studio space, and they were able to hone their craft. But it was when I was listening to it, and then I heard and I went and researched more of their story, I began to say, and then Andre 3000 at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame said that, great things start in little rooms. And it's so true, because I think that in little rooms, you have the ability to fail. You don't have as much room to fail in big rooms. You have a lot of room. And here's the other thing too. You learn the discipline of willing to fail and risk. in little rooms, because if you don't learn to fail and risk and take those things right there in little rooms, when you get the big rooms, you still won't take those chances. You know what I'm saying? Because the chance is going to have more riding on it. So you got to know in your gut when it's that time. And so I think I think so many times people are so trying to get out of the little room in order to get to those bigger rooms. But it's like, if you skip that process, it's like the big rooms just expose. They're going to expose who you are. You're in a room with sharks or with wolves, you'll get eaten. And so that's why it's really important.
How have you come to view yourself as a masterpiece?
Is I still think I'm just, because of my like beliefs biblically, I believe that I'm a masterpiece simply because of like how actually God has now, how he sees me, what he calls me to be. You know, the Bible is really clear. It says that, you know, if you believe in Jesus, you're a new creation. And so I think for me being that, what has helped me understand is like how important it is for me to bring good things into the world, because I'm no longer what I used to be. And so I think being a masterpiece is just a work in progress, and you'll continue to be that work in progress. And, you know, and it's things where, you know, as you're becoming that, there's things that all of a sudden, you know, like a sculpture, like, oh, that's a rough edge. And then, you know, and then I think, you know, there's a creator who helps you, like, you know, who points those things out and begins to do that. And you have to just keep working. And so, yeah, man, it's been, it's fun, you know what I mean? I'm just really viewing life that way. And I think the more and more I've like looked at art, and the more and more I look at things like that and people who build stuff, it's just, there's just so many different phases to it. So it's been really cool.
Who's this book really for?
Man, this book is really for, honestly, people out there who they want to be different because they're tired of where they're at. And they're wanting to take a step. But also it's like, you know, again, I gotta be really clear with this, and this is going to be frustrating because the way our world was built. And I've always been someone who does not give the world, you know, so I always used to believe, and I think you don't give the world what they want, you give them what they need. And what our world needs is things that make us think, not gives us the answer. I think some people may be frustrated with this book because they're going to want me, okay, here's your 15 steps to actually become a work of art. It's not that. There'll be some practical things, but it's for you to read it. There may be one line that just, and you sit with it. And, okay, what does that mean for me? And we give some practical things, and there's going to be some things that we actually are going to be talking more about, of like with the new company that we're starting, what we're launching. I mean, there's really cool stuff that actually is going to aid in that. But first, you have to be willing to sit with it. And I think sometimes, for me, this isn't like, and honestly, it's not the best, like, you know, best way to sell a book, or, oh man, this book is going to give you, you know, like your username book, you know, your 5 steps to becoming this, right? But somebody reads it, Magnum Opus, Art of One-on-One. They may like, oh, okay, that's kind of intriguing, but they get into it. And you're like one of those people like, man, there ain't no practical steps in this book. It's just whatever. That's not the point. You know, and honestly, the reason why I got the writing and even how I communicate things like that really was, I think, from the greatest communicator ever. I think Jesus was the greatest communicator ever. And the reason why I say he's the greatest communicator ever is because I think great communicators create movements. And there's been no greater movement. And so great communicators, they just build movements. And I think and there's no greater movement than what he started. But when you actually look at him and you read his writings and how he would teach, he didn't tell people. There was a very few things that he said. You know, Sermon on the Mount, he said some very specific things not to do. But a lot of it, he just made you think about it. And if you actually would read his writings, I think a lot of people would reject Jesus today because his writings weren't, quote unquote, deep. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he would say certain things, and as he would say certain things, it would feel very surface level. You know what I'm saying? Like, when he talks about the ideas, like, hey, don't be a hypocrite. When you go pray in your closet, whatever, right? Like, but when you actually, like, sit there and think about that, the actual word he uses is the idea of what they would call the same words, what they call for an actor. He was like, don't be out there performing. Go where no one can see you perform. And your reward is there. He's like, when you're out there performing, and you pray out loud, you know, you're out there and you're doing all this stuff. He was like, what you're doing in that moment right there, he's like, you already received your reward. What you wanted was people to applaud you. But the most important reward is the fact of like a heart being aligned with me. And so, you know, all that being said, I just think that he was just, and so that's what this is about. It's about people just sitting there and thinking and discovering and starting to go on that journey.
So for the person who says, okay, if you're not going to give me 15 practical steps in my most ideal form.
Yep.
What do you say to everyone who will read the book who's asking, what do you promise that I will walk away with?
What I think you'll walk away with is wisdom and just the writings of a man who's on a journey. And as I'm on my journey, whatever, like, you know, kind of like you're on a journey, whatever like resources I can leave behind for people that can actually help them. So I kind of consider, like, you know, you're going on this, like, you know, imagine you're hiking a mountain, or, you know, you're trying to get up Mount Everest, but like as you're going, all of a sudden, imagine you're going up there and you start to discover different type of resources. You discover some food, you discover, like, say, gold, whatever, rope, whatever. You start discovering these things while you're going, man, but you notice people coming behind you. So what do? Man, you want to leave them stuff. Man, hey, when you're trying to get up this part of the mountain, if I could leave somebody a message, oh, hey, do it this way. Hey, think about this, you know, because everybody's going to be different. And so this is just really just wisdom and resources for people that are on their journey. And they're really just these principles and themes. And, you know, and what I hope it does is motivate, inspire people to go. And here's what I care about. I hope what it does, I hope it helps people start to create their own things, their own thoughts. They start to create their own bits of wisdom in that process that they can apply every day, because some things don't work the same way that, like, they work for me. It's not going to work for you, or it's not going to work for other people. And so the main thing, though, I believe these are just tried and true, like, just kind of themes, and hopefully they'll be really, really helpful for people.
Yeah, and you know, it would be so unwise if it were to be such a practical book, given the title is The Art of Becoming One of One.
Yeah, or like Magnum Opus. It's like, no, if I wanted to do that, I would call it like the factory. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
like the mass production. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, and I just think that stuff is so, like, and I think that's where our world's at. Our world lacks creativity right now. That's why we reproduce the same crap over and over again. And that's why when we hear something that's refreshing, like, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, that's different, right? That's why when you hear, like, this year, like the Clipse, like, why their album was such a was masterpiece is because when you really think about them, the Clipse, they say we don't leave, like, you know, a lot of people will produce like 40 songs right in their studio, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna take the best. They literally, whatever they have, they said we never leave anything on the table. And so, like, they have taken their time to, like, build something. So when you hear it, there's like depth there. You know, Malice, Pusha T's, but he didn't rap for 15, 16 years. So he had a lot to say. So you could hear the stuff that was coming out and just the skill set. Or like, here's another, like Olivia Dean, right? And when you listen to like Olivia Dean, it's like, oh, why do we like Olivia Dean? It's like, man, we've heard, I mean, she had incredible vocals, but it's not like she's the greatest vocalist we ever heard. It's just, it's just something so refreshing. Like, she just has fun up there. And you're just like, oh, this is refreshing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and she talks about a lot of different stuff, and you can tell there's depth, like, to her lyrics and things like that. I think that when you see, and that's where I believe our world is looking for. They're looking for way more like creative things to bring stuff to the world, because I think we've just mass produced a lot of stuff. And we call it like creative and art and things like that. I just don't. I think, you know, I don't think we've had those things. I think the internet I think AI is a huge tool that's taking the jump. But the thing about AI, it should be an incredible tool to unleash creativity more. Mm-hmm. It should help, like, be able to, people be able to write better. It should be able to release, people be able to design better, people to create better companies, people to be able to create better systems. Like, that's what it should do, but it needs to be unique. And I believe that that's what the world is actually in desperate need of right now, is this real creativity.
Mm-hmm. If I were to say who this book is for, I would say that it's for the performers. I would say it's for the people who find themselves in different roles and relationships and constantly in that loop of needing to meet the expectations of other people and also the expectations that you've placed on yourself over time.
Yeah.
And to that, I would say, what does this book offer to you? And I would say it offers you the opportunity to build something different. Because when you're performing, I think the fear is, I think a lot of people catch that they are, and most people right now feel the exhaustion of being a performer in their day-to-day life. And most of the time you don't stop is because it's like, well, what am I going to replace this with?
Yes.
How am I going to discover what's actually underneath? And I think this book offers you the question of, why are you performing? How are you performing? And what is the life that you truly need to be building instead?
Yeah. No, that's I think a really good kind of some summary of actually what it is for, or who it's for, another kind of people group. And I also think, it's when you start to think about how people just go and they just keep performing, a lot of times we've been so used to performing that the pain we feel, the exhaustion we feel, we just have gotten used to it. And we just say, oh, it's just life. Versus it being saying, like, life is tiring, life is difficult, but it's even more when you're just not aligned. When you're not integrated, when you're doing stuff you never have been, you should be doing. We're not just talking about a job. We're just talking about actually how your values you bring to the world. I mean, I can tell you so many times working with people how, like, people are married to other people who, like, the other person doesn't really even know their values, because what they did is, when they first started dating, maybe their value, they had such a care for, like, the environment or something like that. And then the person they're dating who they like is like, maybe, he just started, like, global warming and anything like that is just this big conspiracy, by the progressive left. All right. Well, now that person, like, well, I like this person. Well, I don't really want to bring that up. And so they just bury it. And then all of a sudden you just have to perform like you didn't care about the environment. And you just keep doing it. Next thing you know, like, you just literally
10 years later.
Yeah, 10 years later, all of a sudden you just go crazy one day because your, like, spouse, like, puts a cup just in a regular trash can, you know what I'm saying, instead of the recycle bin, and you're just like, what just happened? It's because, like, that's been buried. And I mean, I give that lightly, but there's a lot of stuff for people that really matter to them that they end up burying, and it's just exhaustion. I mean, just imagine, when you think about, like, if you had to put something or someone, and again, here when I say this, probably, like, the wrong analogy right now during the time of Jeffrey Epstein, but like, just go with me. Okay. But just imagine, like, when you watch a movie and they're trying to, like, chain up like a giant, something very powerful, right? It's like they have to do so much. It's like exhausting trying to keep something very, very strong, keeping it locked away. Who you actually are, it's like, it's like the Hulk when Bruce Banner's trying not for the Hulk to come out. Like, that's what it's like. In an event, it becomes so exhausting, like, trying to, like, no, let me just keep it under wraps, because it's actually who you've been meant to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is who you've been hardwired and designed to be. And if you don't let that happen, eventually that power goes inward. And that's when I think there's physical ailments that happen. I think there's mental ailments that happen. I think it becomes very destructive in our behaviors. And so this whole thing is really about liberation for people to be actually who they've been designed to be. Yeah.
And we would argue that's why we're seeing so much violence.
Yes, 100%. Because I think in the world today, yes, it's just like, because we don't know what to do. Here's what's happened. The world's been quote unquote stable because it's just been predictable. But now it's not. It's just not predictable anymore. And we start seeing this. I'm telling you, the sign when I knew that the world was really shifting was in 2016. Because in 2016, when President Trump was elected, like, here's what happened. Like, no one, even him, like, no one thought, they were like, yeah, there's no way. Every poll, they could not, things that they did for the last 50 years, the way they pulled data, all that, everything was wrong. And then you go to 2020 and all the data was wrong again because they went back to the old model. And I knew in those moments, like, oh, the old way of things don't work. And normally they stay in the system for a while. And here we're now in 2026 and it's just still unraveling. The old system is still unraveling and people just keep trying to pull back the old system. And I believe the future is going to be those who actually are going to create the new future and create the new rules of the game. And what I hope and pray that this book can be, and all the companies we create, is actually releasing leaders in the world that would actually, as there's new formation starting to happen in the world, that these groups of people will actually help form the world that would actually be better. That human flourishing can actually happen at a greater rate.
Yeah, I think as an organization, as a family, as individuals, we've experienced so much internal change, even just over the past 30 days, but definitely over the past 3 months. And I think we're always so careful of how do we start to transition that internal change externally. We try to make sure that we move in just proper timing. And so we're going to be sharing so much more about everything that we have coming up and all of the changes that we've been experiencing as individuals and also as a family. This year is going to be crazy in ways that I don't think that we could even predict or describe right now.
Absolutely. It is. It's already been that way, but I think that you can't ask people to go on a journey that you're not willing to go on.
Yeah.
And it's been very difficult because I remember when I was younger, always kind of being someone who would kind of like disrupt things, and I didn't want to be a disruptor for the sake of it. I honestly realized I wanted to be a disruptor for the sake of things to be better. Why does it have to be this way? And so now, so I think this is just a new thing. And so, I mean, we're leveraging everything. I mean, this is the thing, guys. Everything that we're talking about, this isn't just like a thought. I mean, we are leveraging everything. We are leveraging a company that was actually, very profitable, going well, to then completely pivot this company. So this is not a thing of like where we're not all in. We are literally pushing chips table. So it's like if it doesn't work, then okay, we completely missed it, and and we'll own that. But I just believe this is where we're going, and I believe we're pushing things to the table so that we can get ahead of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up us being willing to do something. Wait, what's the statement? Us,
the willingness to do something
that you're asking others. We're willing to do things that we're asking others to do. I'm glad you brought that point up, because something I was going to say earlier is the reason why this book is your life's work is because it's just been a journey that you've been personally on for a very long time. Like when I look at the titles and I see content versus containers and the Hurt Locker, like you've been talking about those concepts for 15 years, and now they're finally, written in a form and are going to be sent out into the world in a different way. And I think there's so much wisdom within Magnum Opus, The Art of Becoming One of One, because you yourself have been relentlessly pursuing this journey for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And you know what I hope this book is too? I hope way past my life, like generations from now, like great grandkids grab this book and it just sparks something that's a revolution. I think about that. Some of the greatest thinkers in our world then become the greatest thinkers in our world until they were gone. Yeah. They were way ahead of themselves. They're way ahead of their time. And what I hope to do is just even on this side of eternity and then beyond, I hope that what we're creating and building is something that actually really does like make humanity better.
Yeah. So Magnum Opus, Art of Becoming One of One, will be dropped soon. We will be releasing that date soon. And in the meantime, we hope that this episode gives you a good idea of what you're going to have access to within a coming month or so.
Yeah, we're going to be building really a community like never before around here. We've got, we hear stories or people, they'll DM us, they'll message us, or we see people in person, and they'll just tell us.
I know we're actually in that era where I'll be like in a coffee shop and somebody will be like looking around and they're like, your voice. I know your voice. Dude, I'm like, hi, I'm Bree.
I know. It's like, but now people, and again, so we want to be able to build that community, because I think there's going to be people, man, that as we build this, that are like being able to actually, that they're going on a journey and that may connect them with somebody else or 3 or 4 other people, and they can go on that journey together to create something. So, yeah, we're going to be building the community. And so we want to encourage you as we do these things, as we drop these things, as we drop the book, man, it would be like the greatest joy. It would be such an honor if you would even, purchase the book and even purchase one for someone else, but just be able to give it to them. That's what this is for, is just be able to do it, to be able to actually be something that can be a gift to somebody else. Because again, I think if we can actually begin to put this out there in the world, I think the world's going to be better.
Well, we're excited to continue talking about Magnum Opus, Art of Becoming One of One, for this next season. And for our first episode of 2026, I feel like audio, we should drop in a little drum roll, please. And in the meantime, keep writing new rules.
Oh.